do want to wrap up soon, but since we have the freedom, I just want to ask you both one more question. Speaking partly for yourself, but to some extent on behalf of your countrymen as well, or country people, country folk. I suppose it's just that we had 20 weeks of these weekly sessions with either people in Ukraine or people in exile or former diaspora, and then quite a lot of Western people or just international people who have an interest in Ukraine for one reason or the other. And I'm struck week in, week out by the almost certainty that you're going to win, technically or otherwise, the emphasis on reconstruction, recovery, renaissance, new dawn, as if it's something that's inevitably going to happen. And I suppose the human in me wants to know, don't you ever despair? Like, this relentless positivity and courage, is this only for the cameras? Do you have moments when we turn off tonight, do you go away and sob? I mean, there must be a sort of darker side to this. How do you find in yourself and in your communities, keeping this positivity going sounds like it must take a lot of energy. I'm wondering, how do you do it really? Katya, you can go first if you like.
I want to acknowledge that I'm very touched by your question. I also want to say that there are places in my life, there are places where I cry and not only sob, but really cry and mourn. There is a place of grief. And also it's just important, it's part of emotional hygiene. It's partly conscious, partly unconscious, but you really need to connect to the sadness in order to connect also to the emotions of joy and optimism. Because your container, it's the same container, you have to be able to go up and down. Because motion, energy motion, you just need to keep an energy going in the system. So I would say that it's very important to have places where you can open your heart, let's call it like this, and belonging, community are very important for Ukrainians now. So from the very first weeks of the war, I've been trying to create some of the spaces for women who are scattered around the world like me, where we can both exchange, cry, but also listen to the Ukrainian poetry and music, and reconnect and calibrate the strings of our soul with the nation. With the soul of the nation, with the spirit of the nation. And this is done in order to keep going. So I just want to say that thanks, to science, thanks to the awareness that we have, we can use this knowledge in order to consciously manage energy, or at least try to. I don't want to boast. There's often nothing to brag about, basically, but there is a mechanism, and many people I know are using it consciously. And I imagine that there will be more. For example, one of the brightest psychologists in Germany, working with trauma, Vivian Dietmar, we will establish emotional healing space for Ukrainians starting from the fall. I know Gabor Mate, who is the best trauma expert in the world, is very supportive of Ukraine and Ukrainians and is willing to contribute. So I believe there will be more spaces and more consciousness that we need to have space for mourning and grief in order to keep going.
Thank you, Katya. And Kateryna.
Yes, thank you for this question. I will speak about my personal experience, but I can't help looking at it also from the political scientist perspective in terms of looking at the challenges and opportunity, because our society is quite tough on emotional intelligence. It has patterns inherited from communist past that basically downplay vulnerabilities. And it is important to be tough. It is important to face the stress, multiple stresses of a post-Soviet person with, you know, poker face, with a very assertive and approach that does not give much space to emotions. And basically vulnerability as an element of mature, healthy individual and society is something that we are still learning. And I think that currently is again a challenge and an opportunity to learn it better, to be vulnerable, to express emotions, for strangers to hug, for an anecdotal evidence I heard about a person who was a quite high position from Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, a lady, always very protocol cautious, would be given just warm hugs to Ukrainian displaced people in Poland, because this is not a time for diplomatic protocol. This is a time for being human. And so, yes, this is time to learn, also being vulnerable, and see that this is okay, you know, demonstrate and learn that this is okay to be vulnerable. Yeah, and obviously there are places I have to be vulnerable and to recognize that even the fact that when you're asked, are you okay, to take the courage to say, I'm not okay. Because the expectation, the social norm is to say, I'm okay, even if I'm not, right? So this is also something that Ukrainians are going through, and I am as one of them.